What's up, gamers? It's Oops All Dragons. I can't believe it.
You're
Can
so
you believe
tired.
it? I can't believe it. I just... Every day is a day, you know? And you wake up and you're like, well, I'm awake. You know what I'm going to do with my day? I'm going to sit here. I'm going to talk to my good friend Varun. And I'm going to be Lisa. And we're going to talk about some nerd shit. Because I've been under a rock.
Yes, you have.
For the past several weeks. And I have no idea what's going on. What's a Spelljammer? What's One D&D? What is anything anymore?
What is the world?
Yeah. What have you been up to?
Playing through SD Gundam Battle Alliance. Super fun. If you like the Dynasty Warriors games, it's essentially that, but a little better. They actually put a little more effort into the combat system this time. So pretty much that. Playing online with some friends, and running some trivia and stuff for Flynn's Arcade over here in South Florida. Other than that, nothing else major. But you're the one who's been doing some major stuff. Seen a certain band with a double name.
Yeah, no, it's dumb. Yesterday, you know, you never like to get a text message from your boss on the weekends when you work a job that, like, you don't work on Saturdays and Sundays. So I got a notification from my boss, and I'm like, I don't like that. Why?
Danger.
Why? And I open it, and delighted to see that she offered me tickets to go see Duran Duran at the Hollywood Bowl, and it was, like, for that evening. Like, she texted me at, like, 2 o'clock, and the show was at, like, 6 or something. It was very, very last minute. And a couple of friends and I went. It was, as I expected, a lot of, it was a lot of middle-aged white people. It was, like... It was a lot of middle-aged white people. Although the opener was Kellis, which was amazing.
Okay.
She was, like, so good. And honestly kind of wasted on that crowd, but, like, whatever. The people that we were sitting in front of were honestly half of my entertainment for the evening.
The crowd. Because
it was this, like, British family, and the one, like, woman, like, the mom, like, you could tell that she was, like, you could tell she used to party.
Jeez.
Like, she was really, like, living it up, and she was, like, a real, like, stan. She knew, like, the deep cuts, and she kept, like, turning to us and being like, they're a very modern, current band. They just put out an album, like last year or something like that. And, like, it's very good. You should go listen to it. You should go back and, like, listen to, like, the stuff that they've put out over, like, the last 5 years. It's really good, blah, blah, blah. Like, she was so into it. Like, it was really incredible. Yeah. And then Duran Duran, you know, they did, like, their standards, Hungry Like the Wolf.
Rio.
Yeah, and then they did oh god, what's that, like, slow, sad one?
I think I've reached the limit of my Duran Duran knowledge with Hungry Like the Wolf.
Obviously,
and
like,
Rio.
they did Girls on Film.
Okay.
Ordinary World.
I probably know these songs.
Yeah.
I've probably heard them.
They've got, like, 4 songs that you know.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're fine. You don't need to know them.
But
it's fine.
British mom, just know them all.
Yeah. And then, like, the other people that, like, I was sitting next to, like, some other people who are also, like, really crazy. And even though we weren't in the nosebleeds, but we were not anywhere near to be even kind of close to the stage. Like, I brought binoculars because the Hollywood Bowl is huge.
I've never been.
I'm gonna be going there again soon to see Florence and the Machine next month.
Ooh.
And I am so excited.
Ooh, are you closer?
I actually just saw also for free. Also, somebody offered me a ticket last weekend. I saw John Williams.
Oh, wow.
In concert there. That's a thing. Yeah.
Did he do, like, Star Wars or?
Yeah, of course he did Star Wars. Everybody was there with lightsabers and waving them around. Like,
he does.
Shut up,
music.
nerds. He does other music. He He like did a snippet of like some music that he's composing for the new Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
He, you know, did like a medley of like his like greatest hits.
Okay.
You know,
Damn.
John Williams,
Very
iconic
cool.
composer, fucking 90 years old, 90, and has absolutely no plans of stopping, like doing his job. I'm like, dude, you could stop. You
He's
could
gonna be
stop.
like Scat, man. He's gonna die on stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's gonna die. He's gonna die the way he lived, doing what he loved.
I'm glad he loves it. I'm glad somebody likes their job. I think we need like at least a handful of people who actually like doing their job in this world. And it seems like he's one of them. And good for him. But yeah, Duran Duran, and they were, you know, middle-aged men with just a screaming fan base of middle-aged women.
They
Some,
got the,
I heard
they
a
got
lot
the
of like
cougars.
people screaming like, yeah, like the women like that were like in the section that I was in. Like for some reason I was in the section where like it was the women who were screaming like, "We love you," blah blah blah. And it was like, girl, they cannot hear you. They are half a mile away. That stage is literally a half mile away from where we're sitting.
How many people does the Hollywood Bowl see?
Oh God, a lot.
I've seen it, obviously. Like it's a famous venue, but I never knew it was so big.
I could be exaggerating. Hold on.
Because I've been to some big arenas and stuff in the past where, yeah.
Oh yeah, a Hollywood Bowl seats 17,000 people.
Oh, gee, that is, whoa.
And it was packed.
Way more than I thought.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's like, it's like a fucking WrestleMania or something.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is 17,500 people capacity.
Yikes.
And
All
it
right.
was, like, it felt like there were that many people there, I don't know. It's always fun because there's the people who, like, can, like, afford to pay for parking at the actual Hollywood Bowl. But the gag is, if you actually park at the bowl, that just means that when it's time to leave, you're gonna be stuck there for an hour.
Fucked. Yeah.
Waiting for the shuttles to leave and waiting for the pedestrians.
Yeah.
Traffic for about a mile and a half around the theater is just awful.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just have to be conscious, like when you're driving around town, like Friday night, Saturday night, like don't go anywhere near the bowl. If like avoid Hollywood and Highland at all costs.
You will be trapped.
Just avoid Highland.
Have you seen the movie The
You will
Warriors?
be trapped. Yeah, it's like it gets bad. We park like a 20-minute walk away, and like literally the time it takes us to walk back to the car, we would have been still stuck in the parking lot.
Yeah.
We would not even have gotten out of like the parking lot.
No,
like,
even
it's so
over
much better.
here in like the Broward Center for Performing Arts, that sort of place. Or I went to see Phantom of the Opera, and just getting out of there, which it's not a huge venue. It's maybe maybe 1,000, maybe a little over 1,000 people at most.
Mm-hmm.
And that took like an hour to get out of there. So just like the Hollywood Bowl, how many people? Jesus, it's got to be insane to try.
And that's considering that a lot of people. Yeah, and that's considering that a lot of people do that, where like they park somewhere else and like walk to it. But a lot of people are like, "Yeah, I'm gonna park on the lot at the." No, don't do that.
You fools.
That's dumb. Hey, listeners, take this from me. Take this from someone who I have been saved from making this mistake. I have not made this mistake because people have stopped me from making this mistake. Don't park at the bowl. Don't park at the bowl. If you can, take a shuttle, take a bus, take the metro. It's not.
Do you
It's
value
really
your
not.
time?
Like you're paying extra. You're paying extra to have a headache.
Oh, no, I get it. All right. So you've actually been up to.
That was my day.
You've actually been up to a bit more than me.
I've
recently.
been outside, Varun. I've been outside.
You've been.
Hence
out and
why. Hence why I have no idea what any of these things are. Please explain One D&D to me.
Okay, so the big revolution, One D&D, the new playtest material for what's looking to be the new version of D&D coming out in 2024. They're not calling it 6th edition. They might want to get away from...
do away with
yeah,
editions. Yeah.
And just like have one kind of unified rule set that they can periodically update because everything's just so online now. But yeah, it's a change to, in this case, a lot of the character creation rules for, let's just call it 5th edition or just D&D in general. That is a bit of a game changer with some of the stuff. I'm clicking through it right now because I have notes and I have this PDF just in case. But some definite pros, which I think both you and I will kind of agree on, and then some potential drawbacks or issues I've seen playtesting this thing so far. But yeah, we'll just kind of go down it. I'll give my opinion because I've playtested it, and then I know you've read through a bit of it at least. So we'll talk.
I've skimmed it. I've watched a couple of videos on it.
But yeah. So starts with the race and the character background stuff. So they've decoupled ability scores from race. So now your ability scores, your starting ability score bonuses, are granted by whatever background you've chosen versus your race. So now you can easily be
sense.
Yeah, you can very easily now be a highly intelligent orc versus, really having the deck stacked against you to be a barbarian if you're an orc. And
because it makes sense, as a human, in real life, the skills you have are based on the stuff that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that can be related to familial inherited crafts and things, but you're not
intelligence isn't hereditary.
Yeah, intelligence isn't hereditary. You work at it. Maybe it comes more easily to some people than others due to any number of factors, but or being dexterous is something that you can practice at. Strength is something that you can build. All the skills and abilities, I feel it just makes sense to actually couple them to your background, because I feel up until now, backgrounds have been so kind of useless. When you're building your character and you have to choose Outlander or whatever, people don't really care what they pick.
Everyone just pick Outlander because it's the best for travel. It just lets you get food all the time. All the other passive abilities or whatever are just for backgrounds are useless. No one uses them.
Yeah, what's the one? The hometown hero one.
Yeah.
Where it's or folk hero one where it's you can find shelter anywhere you go. When has that ever come up? There's some of these that, they just don't come up. The situations that they would be helpful and just don't seem to come up.
Yeah. I've tried using them.
And, it really does make it feel this is a choice that I made and it was completely pointless. I've seen, with a lot of, newer players that I've played with, want to pull in more stuff about their background, that involve, that choice that they made in character building. And, I've seen people just become a little crestfallen when it's no, it doesn't really matter. You still have to roll for it. It doesn't matter that your background is that you're a chemist. If you're you still would need to have proficiency in this and this and this. You still have to do this whole thing. You wouldn't just know this. And it's well, but my whole job was to be a pharmacist. What do you mean I don't know about penicillin? It's yeah, it just makes more sense for skills and abilities to be tied to abilities. That's or to backgrounds. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, going more the nurture route versus nature, and I think this is something you've definitely gone in on before. Of just going with the ability scores by race, playing into that old kind of even going back all the way to token level mindset of these races kind of being preset based on existing races in the real world, and then attributing positives and negatives to those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's giving very much phrenology.
Yeah, measuring skull
it's
size.
giving yeah, what shape is your skull?
Yeah, getting away from that sort of thinking.
Yeah.
And yeah, making backgrounds useful now. And backgrounds don't just also give you your ability scores, they also give you starting equipment. I think they haven't done anything with class yet, so I think they're still keeping overall starting equipment, like whatever pack you get, whatever weapons you get. I think they're keeping that with the classes. Let's see how they redo some of those. But they also give you, some sort of ability, and I think some sort of, each background comes with some sort of feat as well, which I don't know how I feel about that, because feats being an optional thing, I think, is definitely better for beginning players, newer players. More experienced players know exactly what they want. They can read through feats, and they can find the ones that they want. And they'll know. They'll be happy, with what they choose. Versus getting one at level 1, especially magic feats. So many backgrounds have magic initiate now that we played with some new players trying the new test rules, and it took forever to get their characters created because we have to walk them through all the basics of just like ability scores and all this. We're doing this all on paper. Walking through all the basics. And then, even if they chose a fighter based on their background, guess what? They had magic. Or some of the races just naturally come with magic too. So you have to teach them, okay, this is how your magic works. It's different from this other person's magic and how their magic works because they're an actual caster. You have this special thing that lets you cast it, once a day. And here's the effects and yada, yada, yada. And yeah, what should have been like an hour took up to like 3 hours to get all the characters done. Oof. We had like 4 players. So like Yikes. It wasn't, and 2 of them were experienced. So, 5 people. 3 of them are experienced, 2 were completely new. And yeah, it took like frickin' forever. Because you have to get their minds around all this stuff. And, at a certain point I was just like, okay, let's just start playing and, we'll teach you as we go. But it increases the amount of stuff that they have to track as players, which again, for a more experienced player, or if they're making all this purely online, could be fine. Because if you're letting the computer do the lifting for you on tracking all of this stuff and putting it in the right place, I can see it working out just fine, even for newer players. But if you're pushing in person at all, yeah, you're making a lot tougher for new people to come in because simple builds are going away. And even if you don't pick one with Magic Initiate, you still have some other weird feat that your character does based on whatever background that they've got. So that's something I'm thinking came from the idea of people not wanting to choose or not liking to choose between their ability score increases or a feat at level 4. But I think the better option in those cases are just give them both. Like, don't force a feat onto someone. I really liked 5th edition on how it made character creation, especially for new people, really easy. If you wanted to make a really simple character, it was really easy to do so. And now that's kind of going away. Versus if they just let everyone have a feat and an ability score increase at level 4, great. Like that just makes those every 4th levels even more powerful. Yeah, we kind of push people to kind of stick with the same class because if you multi-class, then you're skipping out on some ability score increases for whichever class. But like whatever, if you're multi-classing, you've already played enough that you want to deviate from the basic classes and do something new. So just like do your weird combo build instead. Because, my one major concern, and there's other things I definitely want to talk about with the races and stuff, but my one major concern with the backgrounds is, that bar to entry that we've talked about before is getting higher. I think there's things you can do to get around it, but at least as it stands, it was a pain in the neck for the new players that started with us.
Yeah, that's interesting. You would think that the direction would be to try to simplify it even more, but they've, at least as it currently stands, it's actually made it a little bit more complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because now they have all this feat stuff to track, magic if they got magic initiate, and then a whole bunch of new equipment to track, as well as whatever equipment they're getting from their background or their class when they choose one. So it's a lot. It's just a lot of stuff to track, which is they have a survey out for anyone who's done any playtesting on D&D Beyond, and my major feedback going back to Wizards is there's a lot more stuff for players to track. Just with a lot of these base changes that they've done, even like not initiative, inspiration. Like, I do like that they've given us some rules, like the human, every time a human takes a rest, they just get inspiration when they wake up. Great! Make it really easy, really tangible for how players can get inspiration versus just being at the whims of the GM. Absolutely great. But then they're also putting like, okay, and if you don't use your inspiration by the next time you take a long rest, you lose it. It's like, okay, so now they have to track inspiration again. The dungeon master has to remember this, or the player has to remember this. Versus you just have inspiration. It's a thing that you have. You can only ever have one at a time.
Yeah, it just doesn't stack. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, but I think that's what it is, right? Like, at least with that particular rule, it's just that it doesn't stack, but they've worded it in a way that's, like, makes it more convoluted than it needs to be.
The expiration
where it's like, you lose it at the end of the day.
The expiration's new. It never expires. It's just like, if you had inspiration, you had inspiration. And you can use it whenever you want. And then at the table, you could roll rest, or at the end of the session, or whatever it might be. But I read through the original rules, and it's just like, you get inspiration, you have inspiration. You use it when you want, you can give it to someone, yada, yada, yada. But, like, now there's another little thing that you have to track.
And this one...
Now they put the expiration of, you have initiative, great. If you don't use it by the next time you take a long rest, you lose it. So, if you're doing, like, multiple days...
But then you get it, don't you get it again at the end of the long rest?
If you're a human. Humans get it
automatically. Right. That's sort of... Oh, you're saying, like, in general.
In general, yes.
In general, if you... No matter how you got your inspiration, if you don't use it by your long rest, it's gone. Okay, yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
It's just like, why? Like, you added a good thing.
And that is something that... I feel like that is something that is either going to get... is going to have to get adjusted by the time the final version comes out, where, like, they're going to drop that, or it's going to be the kind of thing that's going to be home ruled out, where it's just like, if you have inspiration, you have it until you use it.
Yeah.
And they don't stack. If you're playing a human and you're getting one every morning, they're not going to stack. You just have one.
Because it's gone in the opposite direction of, like, I can see what they're doing as a way to push inspiration to make people use it more, and to take away some of that nebulousness of when a DM should grant inspiration. So I get that. All that's great. And they want people to, have that little extra, for when they need it to grant themselves or grant a friend advantage at a clutch moment. Absolutely. But then... Yeah. Putting the expiration date, now you're going to force them to use their inspiration every day of play in the game, and they're going to, unless they're a human, they're going to try to have to do something to get inspiration again. And if they make rules around each of the races for how they gain inspiration, then all the races are going to play to do a certain thing a certain way every day, which that's dumb as hell, at least in my opinion. Like, yes, it's still up to the DM, but just, all of this, like, everything I'm talking through is just like, why? Just give them the inspiration and let them use it when they want to use it. If they want to hold on to it forever, let them. There's already enough things to track in the game. That's my one, like, my one mark of, like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? If it's another thing you have to track on top of the already existing set of rules here, then I'm considering it like a bad thing, because the DM already has enough things to worry about. Players already have enough things to worry about during gameplay. Putting another layer of rules, another thing to remember on top of that, by itself may not be too much, but eventually it's kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back. Eventually we're playing Pathfinder, where there's a rule for everything.
Yeah, you don't. If I wanted to play Pathfinder, I'd play Pathfinder, and
and we don't want to play Pathfinder. We played 5e because it's not Pathfinder. It's like the opposite.
Exactly.
So yeah, so I have mixed feelings about some of these new rules, but some of the lore stuff, going back to the races, they've kind of revamped who are considered the core races, where they just have human. I'm going down the list here. They have human. They have the Ardling, which is I believe, a wholly new race. If not, it might have existed way back in the day. Now they're bringing it back, but at least playable. I haven't seen the Ardling in a long time, which is a pretty interesting celestial lineage. It's pretty much the opposite of the Aasimars, where Aasimars are just like really pretty angelic humanoids or humans. The Ardlings are celestial backgrounds, but animal heads. So the furries are gonna like them, but stylized. I think you said it. Egyptian
like the
gods.
Egyptian gods, yeah. Thinking Anubis.
Ra, that sort of look.
Yeah.
And that's pretty good. And they get angelic flight at level 1, at character creation. So a core race can just fly around with magic. That's cool. The Dragonborn, as they kind of revamp them a little bit. They kind of simplify the breath weapon. I wish that just which is fine, but I wish it would just recharge on a short rest versus a long rest, because as it stands, it doesn't scale. So at higher levels, it's going to be pretty useless. So just let it recharge on a short rest. Doors are pretty cool. Doors have tremor sense now. That's super cool.
That makes so much sense.
So much sense. It plays into the dwarf lore, and then as a bonus action, they can just gain tremor sense and just sense things through vibration. That's awesome, and it helps differentiate them. Yeah. Elves, you always have your kind of sub lineages: Drow, High Elf, Wood Elf, with all their little things. Not too much different there. Gnomes, Forest and Rock Gnome. Rock Gnome has so many like gadgety little things under them. They're pretty fun. Halflings, pretty similar to what they were. No major changes there. Tieflings and orcs, not half-orcs, are now a core race. Straight up, full-blooded orc getting their place in the core book as a core race. So they're not, at least by that token, not being portrayed as like an outsider or adversarial villain race or something. They're a core race. They are, like we've talked to Amanda, they're a core race of the world. They're one of the original races. And instead of making half elf or half orc their own sub-race distinct of, human or orc, you now have options to make a mixed blood character where, instead of being your own race, you're part of both races. And you can take aspects of both of the races that you're from and, Frankenstein them together to make your own, custom character race. So you can create a half-orc with special abilities that's different from someone else's half-orc, because they chose that they were born a little different way and they had a little more on the human side or whatever it might be. But that's pretty interesting right there. Just from a optics perspective, not making mixed blood characters a race unto themselves, saying that your lineages do come from the core of the world that they live in, and then lore wise, let's see if they do anything with that. That one's gonna be interesting, because the orcs are historically like the race without a land or the race without a country or that sort of thing. how's it going to work in this new version that they're going into? You know, does a single drop of orc blood make you an orc? Or are the humans going to, you know, would humans start accepting mixed race folks or something like that? I think it's going to be pretty situational. I like the idea of you can be a mixed race entity, person, individual, however you want to put it, and make yourself unique from birth. Versus like, hey, all the half orcs, they all come out the same way.
Yeah, the mixed race thing, I guess, yeah. I mean, I agree with the sentiment of like, yeah, there's no need for them to necessarily be their own listing. What is it that they suggest you do if you want to do a half something?
You literally work with your DM and say which 2 races were your parents, and you just pick which parts you want from it. So if you want the fiendish legacy of a tiefling, you take that, and then you balance it with like, I want the adrenaline rush of a orc, so I'm a half orc, half tiefling. And
wait,
yeah.
I love that, because I think the thing that I always want from the elf is the not having to sleep thing.
Mm-hmm. They still have that,
and
yep.
like, yeah, and like the fact that like half elves don't get that was always kind of annoying to me. So now I can actually do that.
And you can be a half elf, half tiefling, and just you know, fulfill all your fantasies.
Oh, stop. You know, I hate that I'm so predictable.
I just knew instinctively which one you were going to go to first.
Listen.
Are you seen? Do you feel seen, Lisa?
I wish I wasn't. Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. Because, again, I think the race essentialism of it all and the, like, larger conversation in the world of race and our attitude to it, and, like, you know, the differentiation between race and culture and ethnicity, like, where all these things intersect, overlap, and where they don't. These are conversations that, like it or not, nerds, it does trickle into your made-up fantasy games. It does, because it doesn't exist in a bubble. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. We do have to take into consideration these biases that we have and these, like, things that we have been taught in our actual real-world, real-earth life, and, you know, the hundreds of years of colonialism, cheers to the queen dying, like, just, like, these are things that we do have to reckon with within ourselves and acknowledge, like, these are things that we think are normal, and maybe we should, like, think about why we do, and, like, is this a good thing to think is normal? To, like, believe that, like, because your parents are X and because you come from X part of the world, that means that this is what you're going to be good at? Like, no. Like, we need to reconsider that. And the thing is that, like it or not, fantasy and sci-fi are, and fiction is historically how people have, you know, contended with these internal conversations of, like, reflecting on these establishments and these mores, and these, like, sort of, like, more philosophical and more sociological aspects of society.
Yeah. When D&D was just, like, Tolkien and no one kind of questioned any of the things around that, yeah, it was a simpler time. All these things did exist, but, like, the internet didn't exist.
No one was really talking about it, yeah.
No one was really talking about it. Now they are. And if, you know, if you've got a table that just wants to play everything straight fantasy as it's been forever, and everyone's okay with that, alright, no one's going to stop you. But I think this is also a good system to add layers of complexity for people who want to do something new. Who don't want to just say, like, hey, orcs are by default evil, or whatever. Yeah. The race stuff, I think, is pretty cool. And I think the idea of just, yeah, you can just mix and match whatever stuff you want from your lineage and just make it up. I think that's awesome. Talk about the backgrounds. They're all fine. We have things like the Acolyte, the Artisan, Charlatan, Entertainer. Some of these are kind of coming from the 5th edition backgrounds already, but yeah, they give you the ability scores now, they give you skill proficiencies, and they give you equipment, and some languages, and a feat. So there's no more like you mentioned, the folk hero, shelter, or whatever the hell their ability was that no one ever used. There's no like background specific abilities anymore. It's all stuff you would get through normal play previously. So all that's good, all that's fine. I can definitely see some drawbacks as it is, so but let's see like what the finished version of it is. I'm just giving my like first impressions. Couple of the changes. So combat wise, they made 2 changes which one I like and one that I'm questioning a little bit. So first off, they made the grapple rules really much simpler. Everyone always wants to grapple in situations early on in games, and then when they realize, at least in 5th edition, how goddamn finicky it is to grapple, and to break a grapple, and then all the shit you have to look up, because no one remembers how the grapple rule works, people just stop trying it. They're just like, I tried it one time, it took us an hour to figure out what to do, and we said screw it, and it didn't even work out the way I wanted it to. Now it's just like, if you do an unarmed strike and you hit, you can just shoot to grapple. Boom. You grapple the thing. They're grappled. And if they want to escape, strength check or dex check. Or a save, I should say. And that's it. Just simplify the damn rules. That I super like. Because I think adding those options of non-lethal combat or non-lethal resolutions to combat, much more interesting. So that, just generally, I like. No caveats or anything like that. Really simple. Really, really nice little update. The one that I'm questioning a little bit when it comes to combat are critical hits. They've changed how critical hits work now. So normally in 5e, when someone crits, they roll double the dice of all the dice that they were going to roll. So a rogue is going to hit their weapon dice plus all their sneak attack dice, all that gets doubled. Paladin hits with a crit and they smite, all their smite dice doubled, all of that as well. Now they've changed it, at least the way it's worded right now. Only weapons and unarmed strikes can crit. So that means that spells don't crit.
So if you're a spellcaster, fuck you.
That means that spells don't crit. Which in that point, I'm not too salty about that on the spellcaster side, because just spellcasters get so many more options. Like Fireball. Once you get Fireball pretty early on, you're already stronger than most melee characters. So I'm not super salty about the spellcaster thing. Yes, Eldritch Blast kind of gets a nerf. Yes, Fireball kind of gets a nerf. But overall, I think the casters are still generally way more ahead than the melee characters, martial characters. But that also means that spells don't crit and monsters don't crit. So monsters attacking you, they've taken away that. So you can't get crit by a dragon or something trying to hit you with his claws, because they have the ability to recharge and just have so many more resources than the players. I think they're just taking that away. So that I also kind of like, because, yeah, the DM and monsters in general usually have a lot more abilities, a lot more resources to throw in combat than the players do. They have a pretty finite pool. So just having the ability for monsters to crit on top of that, yeah, it can kind of swing pretty badly if something hits at the right time. So leaving crits in the hands of the players, I like that idea. But then there's also the drawback of weapons and unarmed strikes only crit. So again, if you're using sneak attack now, at least the way it's worded, sneak attack, smite, any of that stuff does not crit. So I think overall they're kind of lowering the ceiling for just damage in general in combat, potentially making it a little more dangerous, even at lower levels. But also, I think it's a way to try and make martial characters and magic weapons more, I don't want to say useful, but more powerful. More powerful in the world. Because if you're using the Flame Tongue is a weapon that has its weapon dice, that has, the martial slashing damage, but also fire, or Frostbrand, or that sort of stuff. So if you have an enchanted weapon, I should say, you'll have the base damage and whatever magical damage dice on top of that. All that's in the weapon, so all of that would crit. I'm interested in the idea, but I can see things getting kind of dicey for the players at higher levels. Because if weapons are the only thing that can crit now, the action economy really serves, like, those kind of crit builds even better. So the fighter build that can crit at 19, or even if there's ability to crit at 18 or something like that, and they can do like 3, 4, 5 attacks in one round, that's going to be insane. Each crit itself won't be, 6, 8 dice at once, probably. But if you have the ability to crit multiple times in a round, just because, based on the numbers, I think that can make a fighter feel really strong at level 15 or whatever, versus the wizard who can stop time or whatever it is. So I'm of two minds of it. I think you'd have to play a consistent game with these with this rule specifically, to see how it would swing, because it makes the players a bit more powerful than the monsters, but it also makes the crits themselves less powerful as a balance. Which, and you've seen it. You've played with people who are rogues who crit. That's the most hype moment on the table. When when the rogue realizes that they've crit, just get the handful of dice and want to roll them. Like, it's a bit of a shame to lose that. So, I don't know.
But again, I think that comes down to, the eternal, you can also kind of just do whatever you want. You can
just double everything. Just say that's how we're going to run it. Yeah, you can still home rule that as like, no. Yeah, of course.
We're still going to do like everything you double all the dice.
Yeah. You can, but I want to see
just double weapon damage.
Yeah, I want to see what the intent behind this is. It might be.
I think you might be on the right track of like balance of making it a balance thing.
Yeah. I think it's just a way to make martial characters a bit more, a bit more potent, powerful at the higher levels, versus the casters, who are pretty good from low level all the way up to level 20, and once they get to level 20, they pretty easily outpace most of the martial classes, if not all of the martial classes. So I think that's a way that they're trying to fix that imbalance. So, yeah, but I think they should probably just keep it with the double all the dice. Again, just for less things to track, because, again, now if you crit, okay, what dice am I doubling and what dice am I not, based on how I'm built, and, okay, now I have to roll it like this, and if that's going to be the case, the Greatsword is now the best weapon in the game, because it rolls 2d6 instead of 1d12, so its multiplicative ability goes up even further once you use it. So I think they should probably just keep it as just double all the dice. Again, just for the sake of simplicity and for the sake of, like, everyone loves rolling them dice. Everyone loves rolling a handful of dice.
Kind of, that's the game. What's the point of me hoarding dice the way that I do?
Your dragon's hoard of dice.
Yeah, if I'm not going to be able to, like, use them.
Use them all at once.
Exactly.
But on the idea of ruling something at the table, and that's just how we're going to do it, the kind of homebrewing it, I think they've actually brought in a home rule into the game now with the D20 tests. Not calling them tests instead of rolls or whatever, but it's all the same thing. You make a D20 roll and you say if you succeed or fail. But the added twist now is even on skill checks, if you get a 20, you auto-succeed. Or if you get a 1, you auto-fail, regardless of modifiers in each case. So, there's always...
which is weird that... To me, that's weird that's like a new thing, because I was really under the impression that was what the rules were.
Oh, Lisa.
Yeah. I mean, at least like the 1 being an auto-fail.
No. The idea of the 1 not being auto-fail, I always like that, because you can roll poorly on the dice, but if you're that good at a thing, your ability will still overcome it. So, if you're, super stealthy or super good at Arcana, and you roll a 1, but you need to make a 10, but you have a plus 10 or whatever it is, you're able to still make it. Kind of playing into the reliable talent thing for the rogues. You've made it this far. You're that good that a 1 will not fuck you over that badly. But now there's always a chance you can fail. So it's taking away those like take 10, take 20 situations of like you're good enough. You can just succeed given some time. As long as you're not under duress, you can do it. I think you can still do that sort of thing. Like, I think you as a dungeon master can see, like, someone has a plus 10, plus 11, whatever, in a certain skill, and they're not under duress, don't make them roll. Just, like, they have the time, do it. Or even in cases where they may be under duress, but they're, like, not in combat or something, and they're trying to make this roll. I think there could still be situations where the DM just rolls as, like, okay, you succeed. There's no particularly negative effect for failing. I think it's those situations where even if you're super good at something, if you fail, something bad's going to happen. You're super acrobatic, you're super well at balancing, but you're trying to cross a tightrope. Okay, even if you may almost auto-succeed on any roll, there's still that potential that something happens to that line and you slip. I think those are the situations where that comes into play. The opposite end of the spectrum with the 20, that has the ability to induce chaos into some situations, because now, yes, there's always also a chance that you may succeed. So I can absolutely see campaigns being derailed for players wanting to try something crazy that the DM didn't, account for, and trying a roll and getting that 20 and them just succeeding on becoming the queen's new husband or something. And that becomes the campaign. I think the workaround for that is just don't give them a roll in situations where it's either impossible for them to succeed, or if they succeeded, it would fundamentally like break the game in some way. I think just don't give them rolls in those cases. That kind of gets the idea across that there's no way for this line of thinking to work. Try something else. But giving them the 20 to succeed in like really wacky situations where it's not going to break the game, but it's also like something way, way out there, I think that's fine. Because, like you said, so many people in general just ruled it as skill check. Oh, you get a 1, you auto fail. You get a 20, you auto succeed. That has not been the rules, but hey, we're just making it the rules now.
I mean, that's kind of the whole thing, isn't it? Is like, these are the rules as written, and you can play it this way, but if you don't like it, you can adjust it to fit what you prefer, what you find more fun.
I think regardless of how they kind of do it, I think I'll always keep just double all the dice that you're going to roll, because it's less math and it's so much fun, especially for rogues, especially for paladins. Just give them all the dice, just let them have it. Looking at the rest of it, they're coming up. They're kind of classifying spells. Spell levels themselves are staying the same. They're still, level 0 is cantrip, level 1, level 2, level 3. None of that has particularly changed. I don't think they've changed how any of the spells themselves work. But they're reclassifying them as, like, arcane spellcasting, black magic, that sort of thing. Divine spells, coming from the gods. And now primal spells, which I think are more the earth-based, druidic-based, ranger-type spells. Where I think it's going to be those 3 kind of major categories. And then the backgrounds and the classes might start drawing from kind of those 3 major pillars of magic from the world. The arcane, the divine, and the primal sources. Instead of each class having their own kind of spell list.
Yeah, and it's nice to see the sort of primal aspect of the lore like being used more. Because I feel like we've mostly just seen it's arcane or it's divine.
And then under arcane, you have all of the schools of magic, and they have all of that.
Right.
Kind of density there. But yeah, like druids and rangers get their magic from nature. So just make it a major pillar of magic in the world and play into Lisa's internal hippie and just do it. Just come on. I think that's something that a lot of folks have kind of wanted from the lore, where it's the earth, the nature itself being the source of magic versus it just being whatever the magic they're getting from the earth being an aspect of like a school or something. I think just lore-wise, making that sort of stuff more natural. They don't need to explain it, even though, yes, in the book, it can explain that, yes, this is a divination spell, or this is a, abjuration spell, or whatever. Lore-wise, I think it's pretty good, just giving them the kind of big 3, and then hopefully classes will just say, choose from these lists, these, whatever your version of magic is. You're a wizard, you're arcane. You're a cleric, use divine. You're a druid, use primal. And then all the little offshoots do the same thing. We haven't seen any classes yet, so this is my kind of hope to simplify the spell selection process for casters. Because, as it stands, every one of them has their own list.
Yeah, and there's some things... Oh, God, I'm not going to remember exactly right now, but there are some things where, like, when I was first playing, that I'm like, what do you mean this spell that is clearly, like, based in some eldritch horror is not on the warlock spell list? I think it was Hunger of Hadar or something like that. Like, it was some, like, eldritch kind of spell, like, that had that kind of, like, eldritch flavor, and I'm like, what do you mean it's not on the warlock spell list? It's just so confusing for me. I'm like, it just didn't make any sense. Yeah. It just wasn't adding up. So I think, you make like 3 basic spell lists, and then depending on your class, your spell list is one of those 3.
Yeah, and you just
depending on the source of magic.
And I think that'll give a lot of the classes, give them a refresh, because wizards kind of, they get stuck into whatever school that they're in. That's all that they use. Sorcerers, they'll find whatever spells that they can use from their list that are the best, and that's it. Warlocks, Eldritch Blast.
Eldritch Blast.
Eldritch Blast. The Paladin and the Cleric, all the healing spells. Same thing with the Ranger, usually, and Hunter's Mark. So I think, giving all... And again, this is just me kind of projecting. They haven't seen any new class stuff yet. But taking those, just making 3 major pillars of magic, and just say, you picked a certain class, it casts magic, you use this for your magic. Here's your list, just pick anything from that list. Gives each class a lot more options for spells, and then they can all work the way that they work. Wizards can have their spell books and many spell slots, and copy stuff from other people's spell books and get magic that way. Sorcerers can have their meta magic. Warlocks can have all of your warlock stuff. I forget the pack stuff that goes off their spells. And so they all have the same base level of magic of just what they can choose, but how it works for all of them is going to be wildly different.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of hope they go that way. Simplify the caster, lower, again, going back to lowering the bar of entry, lower the bar of entry for casters. Magic selection, and also open it up. Just give you a lot of different options that you can roll into and then play with.
Yeah, and this is really just based on the one section of like the UA for One D&D that's out, which is just character origins, which is
20 pages so far. Yeah,
race background, races and backgrounds. And there's already a lot to unpack here of like, all right, things that are moving in the right direction. Making backgrounds more useful, uncoupling race and skills. I think they've simplified the races a little bit more too, in a way that makes them more accessible, but they've also overcomplicated some things that they might need to end up walking back.
I think they're in some of these cases, like we talked about, they're adding rules where I don't think they needed extra rules.
Yeah. And I guess like now it's just a matter of like waiting to see for the next release of information of this on, and hopefully what we get next is the classes,
some class stuff, because this is only half of it right now, because we're playing with these races and backgrounds, but still the default 5e classes. So I want to see how they play around with the class stuff as well, because they've definitely got to do some rebalancing based on what they've done here. Yeah, I think all the caster classes are going to just choose from the 3 major areas of magic, and then use all their wibbly wobbly magic stuff on it to give it their own flair. But let's see. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it. We've covered everything. We could go into the races, or not the races themselves, or we can go into the backgrounds and stuff. But the PDF's free. You guys can go download it right now. I would suggest anyone interested just go take a look at it. One other small thing, I guess. They're expanding feats a little bit. So like alert, the good old alert where you can't ever
be surprised.
Now it's 2 things. So it's initiative proficiency. So when you roll initiative, you can add your proficiency bonus to the roll, or initiative swap. Immediately after you roll initiative, you can swap your initiative with the initiative of one willing ally in combat, and you can't make the swap if the ally is incapacitated. So I think everyone kind of figured out that alert was kind of OP, where you could never be surprised. But they're also giving each feat multiple abilities, multiple little things that you're going to get. So crafter, you're still in that crafter realm. So it's a very specific scenario like feats are usually geared to. But now you get tool proficiencies, you choose a couple, you get a discount. So whenever you buy a non-magical item, you receive a 20% discount on it, which, all right, that's good. But also, I'm wary of putting more math into this. Just in general. And faster crafting. When you craft an item using a tool that you have proficiency with, the required crafting time is reduced by 20%. So some of this wording, like I've mentioned, you're getting into the realm of Pathfinder of like 20%. Now you have to define, and I think they, a lot of this is in the book, rarity of the item, the materials that you've got. It's going to take X amount of time. Divide that by, take out 20%, all that. That I'm a little wary of, but I do like that. Hey, feats are more useful now. There aren't going to be just a few ones that everyone takes because they're just so much more overpowered versus some of the other ones which are kind of useless. Like, who uses light armor, proficiency for a feat? No one. I don't think anyone has ever used that feat. Any of the armor proficiency ones. I don't think anyone's ever used those. I've never seen anyone use those. But like healer, battle medic, and healing rerolls. good stuff. So if they're keeping ability score increase or feat at level 4 and 8 and 12 and yada yada yada, at least the feats are more they're meatier now. You're not just getting one thing, you're getting multiple things that you can use on an ongoing basis. So I like that idea. Some of it may need a rework, but overall, I like the idea of just feats being more useful.
I think that's as much as we can say for it right now.
Yeah, I think that's it for now. We have a lot of good. Overall pretty positive, especially about the race and background stuff. I really like that. I think you and I probably want to test it out a little bit and try to, go through like what goes into making a mixed race character and like what does that process look like? Because that's gonna be pretty interesting. Because it looks like it works like a little back and forth between the DM and the player on like, okay, if you take this, you got to get rid of this, or maybe a DM can just say, okay, you want all the OP things from both races? Sure, why not? Just be an orc an orc half thing. So you can you have the halfling luck, and you can't ever die, or you have one free not die when you get to 0.
Get out of death free card.
I'm just thinking of it. Orc halfling. What? How did your parents meet, sir?
They were at a singles mixer. What do you mean? Mind your business.
Is it going to be a really tall orc with like pointy ears, or just a really, really short, squat, like little dude, but he's powerful? I don't know why, but I just thought of orc halfling, and it just tickled my funny bone.
Oh boy. Oh, brother. This guy stinks. Yeah, well, Varun's stuck in a giggle fit, so I guess I'm gonna do the outro. Thank you so much for listening to us babble on for the past hour. If you like what you've heard, maybe slide us a $5, huh? Visit our Patreon. The link's in the thing. Google Patreon, Oops All Dragons. It's something.
It'll be there too.
Yeah. You found us once. You're listening to us now. You can find us again on the YouTubes, on the Spotifys, on the iTuneses. Wherever you like to do your easy listening.
Easy listening.
What am I missing?
I won't say like, comment, subscribe, because I don't think that does anything with the algorithm anymore. If you want to help us out, just listen to more of our videos, or just share us around to new people.
Yeah, tell your friends. They're like, hey, these are some idiots. You need some noise? This is noise.
It's good noise. It's informative noise, all right?
It's noise. You don't have to pay attention to it, but you can put it on and give me the streams. Give me the numbers. Run up my numbers.
You can rewind to that minute where I just broke from halfling orc and just listen to what the hell just happened there?
What's so funny? What the hell is going on in here on this day? Yeah, that's our stuff. That's our show. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Oops All Dragons is a group effort. Our show is edited by Noel Hernandez. Our theme was composed by Brendan Lyons, and our logo art is by Azif On Q. Links to more of their work and their social media will be in the show notes. Find us on YouTube and Spotify, and check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Oops All Dragons.